The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Coming up next on the Pro Wrestling Report, right here on My 24 Milwaukee, an exclusive interview with Impact Wrestling star, the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro. Also, we'll talk about the turmoil in WWE from this past Monday's Raw and last night's SmackDown, Hell in a Cell from last Sunday on pay-per-view, and Raw, SmackDown, the Ring of Honor wrestling show you just got done watching, and so much more. All that right now, right here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Prime Time.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report, Primetime TV, the longest-running pro wrestling news program in the world, with your hosts, David Hero and Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report, Primetime Television here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Octavius, the Tiberius, the alleged Hall of Famer. Hero. And let's get right to our top story this week, which is last Sunday night's WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. A brand new WWE champion in the form of Alberto Del Rio, but a lot of shenanigans surrounding that matchup.
But you already knew that. I mean, Alberto Del Rio just proved to the world he may be, in fact, the smartest man in wrestling. What did he do? He had Ricardo Rodriguez.
He cheated.
It doesn't matter. He won. He got John Cena.
Win if you can, lose if you must. Always cheat, never get caught.
He got John Cena out of the cell, and then took the pipe and laid out your guy, CM Punk.
Roberto Rodriguez getting involved, stealing the key, throwing it into the cell. John Cena excluded from the matchup.
I wonder if Hornswoggle found the key under the ring.
Is he still under there?
Yeah. He tweets from under there once in a while.
Did they bring him food?
Well, there's droppings.
The Miz and R-Truth get involved in the matchup and subsequently get arrested, mostly happening after the matchup as they come in and attack all three competitors. David Hero, this was a great ending to the pay-per-view.
It's a hot ending.
I thought, and it had a bit of realism to it, unlike WWE Raw from this past Monday night, which we'll talk about later, but it had a bit of realism to it that made it that much better.
Well, what was great is that Miz and R-Truth not only beat up the baby faces and Cena and Punk, but they also put the boots to Alberto Del Rio. They made it real. They made it seem like, hey, they're on a mission. They're coming to take over, almost like a new world order of wrestling.
Triple H attacking both Miz and R-Truth. He's fed up. He's upset. But the question that has still not been answered is who raised and then lowered the cage? I'm sorry, the cell.
I have no idea. It could have been one of many people. Could have been Johnny Ace, for all we know.
Mark Henry retains the World Heavyweight Championship over Randy Orton. The pain continues from Mark Henry.
The Hall of Pain, Mark Henry dominating. Once again, proving not only to the world's strongest man, but I think he's the world's strongest champion right now, too. He has a ton of heat going forward. He seems indestructible. Randy Orton's going to have to think of something new and creative to beat Mark Henry.
And we may or may not see that coming up at the next WWE pay-per-view, Vengeance, as it seems as if Mark Henry has moved on to a returning Big Show. We'll talk about that when we get to SmackDown later on here in this program. But Beth Phoenix at Hell in a Cell this past Sunday night, as you DWHS'd, won the Divas Championship from Kelly Kelly.
You know, Sunday night watching Hell in a Cell, I know Luna Vachon, the late great Luna Vachon, looked down and smiled on Beth Phoenix, knowing that finally a wrestler's wrestling diva beat one of the pinup models. Seriously, you know what? They're going in the right direction. Beth Phoenix, you know what? As rich, powerful, and handsome as ADR is, you know, you look at Beth Phoenix, she's rich, powerful, and beautiful.
How'd she get rich?
She's the champion now.
Yeah.
Money always follows the gold.
The bigger purse, if you will.
Well, sure.
Speaking of purses, it was a velvet bag, not a purse, that Cody Rhodes unveiled the new, old WWE Intercontinental Championship title belt to the crowd at Hell in a Cell. And David Hero, even you have to admit, he was your star of the week last week.
Yes.
Even you have to admit the fans loved every minute of Cody Rhodes at Hell in a Cell.
I don't know if they loved Cody Rhodes. I think they appreciated the fact that he brought back some nostalgia, even though nostalgia isn't what it used to be anymore. But having the old IC title belt, now it's a way to sell more merchandise, more memorabilia for Linda McMahon's upcoming race.
You keep going to that. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but Cody said some interesting things, including this belt used to mean something. The Intercontinental Championship used to mean something. It used to be next in line for the championship. David Hero, we've talked about these things on this very program and our 540 ESPN radio show. Was it the fact that the belt was unveiled or the fact that he said those things that made the fans react the way they did at Hell in a Cell?
I think Cody said those things to elevate himself by putting him in the same class as a Bret Hart, as a Shawn Michaels, as a Ricky Steamboat,
as a Honky Tonk Man,
as a Randy Savage. He named legends and put them in the same group as him with that title. It's a way of making him look bigger than what he really is.
We always let you decide whether the pay-per-view was a pass or fail on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report, and 90% of you giving it a passing grade, with only 10% of you saying it was a failing grade. WWE Hell in a Cell this past Sunday, you saw it as a good pay-per-view event. Well, David Hero, Ring of Honor Wrestling just going off the air, and I tell you what, that main event matchup between Roderick Strong and the champion Davey Richards could have been the definition of Ring of Honor Wrestling. Last week we saw that up-close look at Roderick Strong, where he told you what he considers himself to be, which was fantastic, by the way. But the difference and what we saw on tonight's episode, Roderick Strong and Davey Richards destroyed each other with physicality that I don't know if I've ever seen in professional wrestling outside of Ring of Honor. I'm talking even ECW. Davey Richards, obviously the Ring of Honor World Champion, and Roderick Strong has been a competitor for a long time in Ring of Honor. This match, David Hero, again, I think it was the definition of Ring of Honor Wrestling.
These two guys can wrestle, they can work, they will beat each other up. They make it a fight. You know, they mix wrestling with MMA. It's amazing how this product has evolved over the years. It's now truly a Ring of Honor event.
The Code of Honor, obviously spoken about as well, and more matches on Ring of Honor tonight. We were introduced to Tommaso, I can never say that right. Tommaso Ciampa, the dominant male, and then we saw him in a matchup with Andy Right Leg Ridge, another very physical and brutal matchup. And David Hero, what I think they've done very well in Ring of Honor over these last 3 weeks is introduce us to these people, to these characters, which is critical for their success.
And it's not a quick vignette. It's not a quick 20, 30 seconds of them walking through a parking lot. It's a sit down explaining who they are, where they came from, and what they're going to do, what their plans are. Very well done. Jim Cornette does a great job of telling that story. And you know what? Ring of Honor is introducing their product to the fans the way the fans need to be introduced.
This week, I think their best outing so far on the Sinclair broadcasting stations, including right here on My 24 Milwaukee. And we saw what might be the most, well, I don't think there's anything like them in wrestling, David Hero, the Briscoe brothers.
Oh, there's the Bushwhackers.
The okay, the only thing they have in common is baldness and no teeth.
Oh, but the Bushwhackers were the sheep herders before they were the Bushwhackers.
Great point. Yeah, before they were funny haha.
Yeah, and you know what? Vicious. You know, they would go in there, beat people up. Briscoe brothers, old school wrestling tag team, kind of like a newer version of Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher.
And for those of you watching us online here at our website, pwrshow.com, many of you have been asking where you can watch Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor is available for its subscribers on its website Mondays, and then for everyone at no charge on Thursdays. So if you're not able to watch it on television in your market, you get it as well at rohwrestling.com. So Ring of Honor this week, I think the definition of Ring of Honor presented to all of us with Roderick Strong and Davey Richards. Still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, our exclusive sit-down interview with the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro of Impact Wrestling. You definitely want to hear what he has to say. Also, Star of the Week from David Hero and the History Book, a new segment here on the Pro Wrestling Report, PrimeTime TV.
On October 16th, it's the biggest night in TNA history. The most famous name in the history of wrestling, Hulk Hogan versus Sting. One fight, only one man will survive. And Will it be a new era in TNA? In his first one-on-one heavyweight title fight ever, can Bobby Roode defeat the champion Kurt Angle? TNA Wrestling and Direct Auto Insurance present Bound for Glory, live, exclusively on pay-per-view.
This is Davey Richards, Ring of Honor World Champion, and you're watching Pro Wrestling Report on My 24, Milwaukee. Let's go.
Once again, it's time for the PWR Star of the Week. Now, Hell in the Cell was just this past week, and then, of course, I'm sure you're all thinking, it's going to be Alberto Del Rio. I'm sorry, but you didn't already know that. This week's Star of the Week is none other than the jacked-up beaker himself, the man from Ireland, Sheamus. Not only did he have a convincing victory over Christian at Hell in a Cell, but he also led his team in the 12-man tag team match to victory by taking care of Dolph Ziggler. That makes Sheamus the PWR Show Star of the Week.
Hello, fans. Damian Nelson of the Pro Wrestling Report, but you already know that. And joined here by the Pope. First time on video here on the Pro Wrestling Report. Last time we had you on the show, Pope, you told everybody your phone number. You encourage people to call to get, whether it be motivation, questions, whatever it might be. I am dying to know about some of those phone calls that you've gotten at that number, which we'll hear again, of course, and what you've heard from some of the fans all over the world.
Well, apparently, a lot of people, first off and foremost, are concerned with Pope's status. They're more worried about the progression of Pope's career in Impact Wrestling.
You keep leaving that question sort of out there, though. Let's be real here.
Well, it is what it is. And, to borrow a line from my main man, the Stinger, as I like to tell everybody, it's the only thing for sure when it comes to Pope is that nothing's for sure. But what is for sure is right now. And right now, Daddy, those folks that are calling Pope, man, I got to tell you, it has been something of intrigue. It's been something that you just wouldn't imagine. I'm talking about from the gals to the guys. I got people all the way in Germany. I got a faithful caller from Hawaii that calls every week to get Pope's words of advice, and inspiration. I got people that are calling and putting their problems on my lap, but then again, I got a lot of girls, and yes, if you're watching, I'm talking to you, that call Pope every night to say good night, call every morning to say good morning, and I want to let you know something. I am a people's Pope. I have a service to my congregation, so if I talk to you on the phone, it does not mean that we're involved in a relationship. I do appreciate it, though. Thanks for your calls, and please continue to do so. And my boy in Hawaii, Troy, from Wisconsin, who's a faithful caller. I give you props, my friend.
How many times has Dave Hero called?
You know what? It amazes me because Dave has called plenty of times. Pope oftentimes misses his call, and it's not because I have his number saved in my phone.
Trust me, there's no good advice or any advice you can give him that he'll listen to. So,
well, he has did his service to Pope as well, because every time I get his voicemail, listen to the message that he left on Pope's voicemail, I end up going to the toilet. So, Dave, I appreciate it, Daddy. You are a natural, God-given enema to anybody that decides to listen to your voice on a regular occasion.
Tremendous. What's the number again, Pope?
That number, my friend, is 904-303-4994. Pope's personal number, okay? That number is for you. Call that will. Oh, my God, I've had 2 baby mamas to call me. I had a baby mama. Don't read into that.
Baby's mama?
Yeah, well, those are people that want Popes to be their child's father.
Well, there could be some money in that.
Yeah, I guess that's why they're calling. I got aunties calling. I got friends calling. I mean, gee whiz, give it a break. No. As Michael said, I am not the dad.
Well, David Harrell, your best friend, the Pope, D'Angelo De Niro, that interview is all over the place, and there's so much more that can be seen right now on our website, pwrshow.com. Pope talks about Mark Henry, talks about, well, he has a lot to say, and he sort of says it all while not saying it. That available right now at pwrshow.com.
So are you saying the Pope is talking out of both sides of his mouth?
I am saying that he has a lot to say, and you can hear it right now at pwrshow.com.
Daddy.
David Hero, it's the history book, and I don't think there's a better way to start off this segment than to talk about a man who passed away some 14 years ago this week, the loose cannon, Brian Pillman.
Or affectionately also known as Flying Brian Pillman, a guy in WCW that had tremendous matches with Ric Flair, Jushin Thunder Liger, a great tag team with Steve Austin as the Hollywood Blondes, a player in the wrestling business.
And it was Clash of Champions 1996, January of 1996, where the loose cannon was really defined after he went after Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was doing commentary at ringside, causing Bobby the Brain Heenan to drop a pretty interesting expletive live on TBS.
And you know, Bobby Heenan, a guy that had neck surgery, was unaware that Flying Brian, or the loose cannon, was going to come up from behind and grab him.
Yeah.
You can't do that to the brain.
1 month later, February of 1996, at Super Brawl 6, a matchup with Kevin Sullivan that did not happen because Brian Pillman walks out and says those famous words, "I respect you, Booker Man."
I wish you would say that to me.
No, I don't.
But what happened is Brian Pillman once again changes wrestling from being an innovative high flyer to a guy that now breaks kayfabe amongst the public audience.
And this would be a few months before the Outsiders in the NWO in WCW, and Bischoff got involved in that whole situation as well, which again made that much more impactful when it actually happened. And then it would be November of 1996 where the world famous Pillman's Got a Gun episode of Raw occurred.
And the USA Network was not pleased.
Pillman had been released from WCW in the meantime, and in between time comes over to Raw, makes a statement big time in that very, very real feeling angle on WWE Raw. Unfortunately then, in October of 1997, the Bad Blood pay-per-view from St. Louis, Missouri, Brian Pillman scheduled for a match with Goldust. He unfortunately would never make it, as he was found the night before dead in his hotel room in Bloomington, Minnesota, due to a heart condition.
Once again, the wrestling business takes one of its young superstars way too soon.
Being there live in St. Louis, never hearing about it, sort of wondering why the match didn't happen, coming home and watching Vince McMahon share with the world that Brian Pillman had passed really did strike a chord with me as a wrestling fan. And again, only 35 years old was Brian Pillman, taken way too soon. But Brian Pillman is a reflection this week in the history book. Still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, we're going to talk about WWE and Impact Wrestling. Stay tuned, more to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Primetime Television.
Hey, this is Harry Smith. You're watching the Pro Wrestling Report on My 24.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report. Damian Nelson here alongside David Hero on My 24 Milwaukee. Thank you so much for staying around after Ring of Honor Wrestling and joining us. And let's talk about World Wrestling Entertainment. And David Hero, a huge, huge situation on Monday Night Raw this past Monday night.
They had a walkout. Everybody, even good old JR, has got up and left Monday Night Raw.
It was a vote of no confidence, and Triple H as the COO of WWE, and as you said, David Hero, not just JR, but everybody walked out.
The cameraman, the ring announcer, the timekeeper. Yeah, only one that didn't leave was Hornswoggle. I think he was stuck under the ring.
We talked about this on our radio show this past Monday night, and David Hero, it came off as a bit silly. It came off as a bit comical.
Well, the problem I had with it is that they had a fantastic, dare I say, tremendous.
Oh, hash mark tremendous?
12-man tag match, and then a 40-minute match.
27.
27-minute match. Well, with commercials, it was 40. That the fans were emotionally invested in, to then end that and then go into not really a snore fest, but everyone comes out for everyone to leave, and the show ended kind of flat.
Kind of flat, extremely flat.
Yeah.
And even after watching it back again, it still just didn't sink in. And maybe that was because some stars, such as CM Punk, John Cena, Randy Orton, Kelly, your star of the week, Sheamus, weren't there.
They couldn't be there because if they give the vote of no confidence and they're the baby faces, the good guys, the ones that we all look up to and want to cheer, well, then it completely ruins any credibility Triple H might have had.
We saw on SmackDown last night, and we'll talk about SmackDown in a minute, that we're going to see Triple H's firing called for on Raw this Monday night. Where is this going? What is the end of this saga with Triple H as COO of WWE?
Well, it's hard to say. The good thing for Triple H is that he married right, so he'll always have a job if he's fired or not.
Triple H married to Stephanie McMahon, the daughter of Vince McMahon.
But, I mean, obviously it's going eventually towards the Survivor Series. That's what they're building for.
The Rock and John Cena.
This next pay-per-view may be a throwaway, which means they're not going to care about it. But, you know, does Vince McMahon come back? Does the future Endeavor team of Miz, Ron Killings, and Kevin Nash show up?
R-Truth being Ron Killings.
R-Truth. Is John Morrison, is that a worked shoot promo where, you know, he might be fired next only to come back with Miz and
You say he's not leaving WWE. I say he's on his way out.
Who would want to leave a paycheck like that?
Gail Kim, Chavo Guerrero, as he told us this past Monday night on our radio show, they chose to leave.
Because they were there for a long time.
John Morrison's been there for quite a while. He's been there for at least 5-6 years.
I don't know why you're disagreeing with me.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm counterpointing.
You know I'm going to be right. But, you know, it's Survivor Series is coming up. Madison Square Garden, New York City. The Rock, John Cena teaming for the first time. You know Vinnie Mac is going to be somewhere in that building. You know Kevin Nash will be back. That's where it's all going to. And then, boom, going into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania.
We asked you again on our Facebook page if you thought the ending to WWE Raw was believable. And David Hero, it seems as if the sentiment is the same as at this table. 28%, only 28% saying yes, it was believable, with a overwhelming 72% saying no, it was not.
But if we were to ask the kids that watched it that are 12 and under, they would think it's believable. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're probably right. As we talked about SmackDown just briefly earlier, last night on SmackDown, we saw the return of the Big Show to WWE, and he wants some of Mark Henry.
You know what? They're going to have a battle. It's going to be at Vengeance. There's no way around it, unless it's a triple threat with Randy Orton and Big Show and Mark Henry.
Yeah.
But you know what? Big Show deserves it. He's back. You know, he's rehabilitated.
Fans love him.
Fans love him, and you know what? It's going to be a good big man battle, much like it was at Money in the Bank in Chicago.
They put on an excellent matchup at Money in the Bank in Chicago, and we really haven't seen. We saw the Big Show lose decisively to Mark Henry, which was part of his rise to winning that World Heavyweight Championship. Let's see what happens at Vengeance in just a few weeks.
And you know, people are be like, well, they want Randy Orton. They can't keep Randy Orton and Mark Henry together too long before it gets stale.
But they kept Christian and Randy Orton together for a very long time.
It's two different kinds of matches. Orton and Christian can tell a good story together.
For the few of you out there who were still watching NXT on WWE.com, a little programming note, it has been moved to Wednesdays. It's going to be on Wednesdays now, 3 p.m. Central Time, as opposed to its normal Tuesday night, 9 o'clock time slot. So, David Hero, I know you're a religious viewer of NXT. That's where you can now find it.
Absolutely.
It's time to move on to TNA Wrestling. Well, David Hero, Impact Wrestling Thursday night, and we found out that it will indeed be Hulk Hogan versus Sting at Bound for Glory. What?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I ain't kidding you. No.
What is this, Johnny
I told you last week. We don't have time for that.
That's an unsafe working environment. I could have pulled my
it could have hit me in the head.
Oh, my gosh.
Sting versus Hogan at Bound for Glory. It's going to be a no disqualification fight, which will come out later.
I'm still not pleased about this, but Hogan versus Sting is the money match for Bound for Glory, which I've been saying all along. And now it's going to be a no disqualification street fight.
TNA released that information in a press release.
A press release. Don't put it on TV, put it on a press release. But that's the best way for Hogan and Sting to have a match and hide all of the flaws that they're going to have with it.
I'm still not a fan. We did see an excellent wrestling matchup tonight, though, and that being between Bobby Roode and James Storm. Beer money collided, if you will, this past Thursday night on Impact. A great matchup and an amazing way to go into Bound for Glory with Roode taking on Angle for the World Heavyweight Championship.
You know, they said that, you know, the reason they're having Bobby Roode against his friends is because their friends also want a world title shot. So if they beat Bobby, then they get the main event. And what better way to torture someone than to have them fight his friends? And I will say this, Bobby Roode and James Storm, fantastic in-ring together. They know each other like the back of each other's hands. They're going to have great matches, and they proved it on Thursday night.
And Bobby Roode is going to be joining us right here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime
The
next
Machine,
week.
Bobby Roode?
And what is the follow-up? What happens on WWE Raw next week with Triple H and the walkout of this week on Raw? All that coming up next week right here on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television. I want to remind you, several more videos available right now on PWRshow.com, including the full extended version of our discussion with the Pope from TNA Wrestling. Thank you so much for joining us here on My 24 Milwaukee. We'll see you again next week.